My boss went on a business trip and left a dumb friend in charge who ran the company based on TikTok recommendations. So, my name's Edward Lawson. I'm 34 and I work as a commercial specialist at a cybersecurity company in Denver. It's not the kind of job that makes people lean in at parties, but I like it. I'm good at it. I keep things running, smooth out deals, work with the tech team to make sure we're not promising clients unicorns we can't deliver. It's not glamorous, but it pays well, and I sleep at night knowing I'm not selling lies. Now, my boss, Richard Baker, is this silver-haired, 10-all-year guy who travels more than he works. Always on a plane, always sending emails at 3 a.m. from some hotel in Singapore or Tokyo. Honestly, he's the kind of guy you tolerate because he brings in money and keeps the investors happy, but no one really misses him when he's gone. Which brings us to last month. Richard decides he's going to Asia for 4 weeks. No big deal, right? Except instead of leaving one of the VPs or even someone in ops to steer the ship, he puts his girlfriend, Jennifer Storm, in charge. Yes, girlfriend, 29 years old. No background in IT, no background in cybersecurity, no background in literally anything relevant to our company. But apparently, what she lacks in experience, she makes up for in natural leadership. Her words, not mine. We all got the email on a Thursday morning. Richard announced his sabbatical/business trip, and, oh by the way, Jennifer will be assuming executive oversight responsibilities while he's away. I read that line twice, then looked over at my coworker Brandon, who already had that slow headshake going like he'd just seen someone lick a subway pole. The kicker? None of us had even met Jennifer at that point. She'd popped into the office once for like 10 minutes, wearing some overpriced yoga outfit and giggling about hacker vibes. That's literally all I knew about her until Monday morning rolled around, and she showed up for her first team sync. She came in like a hurricane in heels. Bright pink pantsuit, gold clipboard, a Bluetooth headset she didn't even use, just wore like a badge of honor. She marched into the conference room, all confidence and no clue. Hi team, I'm Jennifer. I'm really excited to lead you through this journey of growth and vision. I swear to God, she actually used the word synergize unironically. Twice. We all sat there in silence, trying to figure out if this was a prank. I glanced across the table at Mason from engineering. The guy literally builds intrusion detection systems for fun. He looked like he was trying not to vomit. Jennifer, meanwhile, was pacing the room like she was auditioning for a TED Talk. I know I don't come from a tech background, she said, but I believe leadership transcends industry. I'm a born leader. I can feel that energy in this room. We're going to unlock our potential together. Someone, probably Ethan from legal, coughed just loud enough to be heard. Jennifer whipped around and gave him a huge smile like he'd just asked to marry her. Exactly. That's the spirit. Ethan's face said he'd rather eat his keyboard. By the end of the meeting, we'd learned absolutely nothing. No action items, no agenda, just vibes and buzzwords. She ended it by saying we'd have daily alignment circles, which turned out to mean mandatory 8 a.m. stand-ups where she talked at us for half an hour about teamwork and gratitude. At one point, she asked us to go around and say what animal represented our work energy. I said, owl, because I wanted to stare at her silently until she left. The first week was mostly harmless. Annoying, but harmless. Then she started making changes. She restructured the project management board because she thought the colors were too stressful. She changed the ticketing system to one she found on TikTok. Not even joking. The new system didn't integrate with anything. Mason nearly had a stroke trying to rebuild his workflow. She also introduced something called Silent Innovation Hour. We weren't allowed to talk from 2 to 3 p.m. every day, so creativity could breathe. We're a cybersecurity firm. Most of what we do involves, talking to each other. Collaboration, code reviews, emergency response. But no, Jennifer thought we needed to let the code flow in silence. I used that hour to build a private Slack channel where the whole team now vents in secret. It got worse when she decided we needed to rebrand our digital identity. She scheduled a 5-hour offsite at some upscale spa where she forced us to meditate on the mission and brainstorm new taglines. 5 hours. I still have the sticky notes. One of them says zero trust, full heart. I wish I was making this up. By the second week, we were all on edge. Nobody trusted her, and even fewer people respected her. I tried to stay neutral, kept doing my job, kept out of the crossfire. But then she started targeting individual people. Brandon got called out in front of the team for not being emotionally available during a brainstorm. Nora, who runs infrastructure, got accused of resisting feminine energy. I had to talk her out of quitting on the spot. And then it was my turn. Jennifer pulled me into a one-on-one, said I had a guarded energy and needed to be more receptive to creative leadership. I told her I was receptive to results, not vibes. She blinked at me like I'd spoken Latin. That afternoon, She submitted a formal request to HR suggesting I attend emotional intelligence coaching. I wish I could tell you this is a joke. It's not. I spent 2 hours talking to someone who asked me how I handle being intimidated by strong women. I told him I wasn't intimidated. I was exhausted. There's a week and a half left before Richard comes back. I'm not sure the company will survive it. I know I won't. Jennifer is still marching around like a self-help guru in a startup sitcom, holding spontaneous gratitude huddles and asking people if they feel seen during firewall protocol updates. We're one moon's circle away from a full-blown mutiny. And every time I hear her heels clicking down the hallway, I brace for another wave of chaos. I used to love this job. Now I'm just counting down the days. I got to the office at 10 a.m. like I always did. That's been my routine for years. Show up mid-morning, stay late if needed, deliver results. It's never been a problem because my numbers speak for themselves. I closed more deals than anyone else on the floor. I brought in the biggest enterprise clients, and even Richard, for all his ego, understood that trying to mess with my schedule was just bad business. But that morning, the vibe was off the second I stepped out of the elevator. Brandon was coming down the hall toward me, and as soon as he saw me, his face shifted into this tense, wide-eyed look. He glanced over his shoulder like he was afraid someone was following him, and then said, low and fast, "Dude, Jen is looking for you, and she's angry." I didn't even have time to ask what the hell that meant before he disappeared down the hall. I kept walking toward my office, trying to figure out what could have possibly set her off now. Maybe she didn't like that I hadn't responded to her inspirational quote email from the night before. She sent those at weird hours. Last night's had said something about unlocking inner excellence through morning gratitude. I hadn't replied because, well, it was almost midnight and I was watching the Nuggets game. As I stepped into the bullpen, I heard a sharp thud, followed by the sound of something heavy being thrown. Before I could react, a manila folder hit me square in the forehead with the kind of force you don't expect from office supplies. The metal clasp clipped me just above my eyebrow, and I felt a sting followed by the warmth of blood sliding down the side of my face. I staggered back a step and raised a hand to my forehead. The folder hit the ground beside me, scattering a bunch of printed-out emails and what looked like a screenshot of a calendar. I looked up just in time to see Jennifer standing in the middle of the floor with her fists clenched at her sides, her face twisted in something between outrage and triumph. "The workday starts at 8, she screamed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Why are you coming in at 10? My hand was still pressed to my forehead. I pulled it back and saw a red streak across my fingers. My heart was pounding, not from the pain, which wasn't much, but from the shock. I wasn't used to getting physically assaulted at work. My eyes met Jennifer's, and for a second, it felt like the entire floor had stopped moving. Phone stopped ringing, keyboard stopped clacking. People stared from behind monitors and over cubicle walls, frozen. I took a slow breath and stepped forward, ignoring the sting in my head. "You threw that at me," I said, voice low but steady. "You just threw a folder at my head." She crossed her arms. "You weren't here when the day started. That's unacceptable. I'm leading this company now, and under my leadership, we begin at 8 sharp. No exceptions." My jaw tightened. I bent down, picked up the folder, and placed it back on her desk with care, like it might explode. "You do not throw things at people," I said. "I don't care what your leadership style is." "I was making a point," she said, not even blinking. "If you had been here at the start of the day like everyone else, we wouldn't be having this conversation." The thing is, I wasn't about to stand there and argue with someone who thought throwing office supplies counted as leadership. I didn't trust myself to speak again without losing it. So I turned and walked toward the break room. I could still feel people watching me. I passed Nora on the way, and she gave me this look, half concern, half disbelief. Inside the break room, I grabbed a napkin and pressed it to my head. The cut was shallow, but it was bleeding just enough to piss me off. I stood there in front of the microwave, breathing through my nose, trying to keep myself from marching back out there and saying something that would end with security escorting me out. Jennifer Storm had officially crossed a line, and it wasn't even noon yet. I didn't even get a full hour to cool off before I got the Slack message. My office. Now, no subject line, no context, just that. Classic Jennifer. I walked back through the hallway with a makeshift bandage on my forehead, just a folded paper towel taped on with Scotch tape, and half the team still pretending they weren't eavesdropping as I passed. She was standing behind Richard's desk when I walked in, arms crossed like a sitcom principal waiting to suspend a kid for skipping detention. Her pink blazer was even brighter than usual, almost blinding against the office lights. The blinds were drawn like she was staging some dramatic interrogation, and she didn't ask me to sit. "You're late every day," she said the moment I stepped inside. "You stroll in at 10 like this is your personal playground. That's not how this works." I closed the door behind me and stood still for a moment, then said calmly, "Jennifer, I have an arrangement with Richard. He and I set that up 6 years ago when I brought in the Lockheed account. That quarter alone brought in $6 million. Per quarter. Not total. He gave me that flexibility because I earned it. She narrowed her eyes. That might have worked with Richard, but I'm in charge now. And I don't care what you did 6 years ago. What I care about is your behavior today. You care more about my arrival time than the fact that I'm consistently your top closer, I replied. I meet and exceed every quota. I handle the enterprise clients no one else wants to touch, and I've kept this company afloat through some of the roughest quarters we've ever seen. That's not ego, that's facts. She stepped out from behind the desk and walked toward me slowly, heels tapping against the floor with the kind of deliberate rhythm that only meant trouble. You think because you made the company some money once that you're untouchable, she said. But what I see is someone challenging my authority. You were late yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. It's a pattern. It's a schedule, I said, trying to stay calm. A schedule that's been working for years. You think Richard cared what time I came in when I was pulling in more revenue than the rest of the sales team combined? She leaned on the edge of the desk and tilted her head like she was speaking to a toddler. Richard's not here. And frankly, I'm not interested in working with people who think they're above the team. If you can't follow the rules, then you're not part of the team anymore. I stared at her, trying to wrap my head around what she was actually saying. You're serious? You're really going to ignore performance metrics, client retention, contract renewals, everything that matters, because you think coming in at 10 is some kind of threat to your control? She didn't blink. You've made it clear you don't respect me as a leader. You threw a folder at my head, I said quietly. Respect goes both ways. Her expression didn't change. She just walked back around the desk, sat down, and opened her laptop without another word. I stood there for a second, waiting for something, some indication that she realized how absurd this all was, but nothing came. So I turned around and walked out. As I passed through the bullpen, people avoided eye contact. The paper towel on my forehead had started to peel away. My coffee was still sitting on my desk, untouched. I picked it up and tossed it into the trash without breaking stride. There was no place for logic in that office anymore. Not under her. I stood just inside the door to her office, the bandage on my forehead barely clinging on anymore, while Jennifer sat behind Richard's desk like she was playing CO in a school play. My head was pounding, partly from the cut, mostly from the sheer absurdity of what was happening. I kept my voice steady and said, Is Richard even aware of this? Does he know you're threatening to push out one of his top earners because he works a different schedule, one he approved himself? She smiled, all teeth and arrogance. Oh, we can ask him right now, she said, spinning her chair around and clicking a few keys on the laptop in front of her. Let's clear this up immediately. I watched her open a video call with Richard like she was dialing up some kind of divine authority, and I almost felt a flicker of hope. Maybe once he saw what was going on, he'd rein her in. Maybe he'd remember the contract we signed. The flexibility we'd agreed on. The 7 years of closing deals when no one else could. The screen blinked once, then twice, and suddenly Richard's face appeared. He was clearly somewhere in a hotel room, hair slightly disheveled, eyes bleary from jet lag or too many flights. The lighting was bad, one of those weird yellow desk lamps from a foreign business suite, and he looked like he'd barely slept in 2 days. He hadn't even fully focused on the screen yet when Jennifer launched in. Hey honey, she said sweetly, like we weren't standing in the middle of a professional firing. Quick thing, one of the salespeople here has been showing up late every day. Like hours late. I just wanted to check. Can I let him go? My mouth opened, ready to speak, but she didn't even turn the laptop toward me. Didn't mention my name. Didn't let me say a word. Just stared into the camera with that fake softness in her voice, like she was talking about a broken coffee machine. Richard exhaled, long and slow, and rubbed his face. He looked like he'd just gotten out of some marathon meeting and was 2 seconds from passing out. Do what you think is right, he said, voice flat, distracted, like he wasn't really listening. That was all she needed. She clicked off the call before I could so much as open my mouth, closed the laptop with one hand, then looked up at me with this smug little nod like she'd just won a game I didn't know we were playing. Well, there you have it, she said lightly. Go ahead and clear out your desk. You're no longer part of this team. I didn't move. She tilted her head. You can go now, Edward. Security can walk you out if you need help finding the door. I looked at her, then at the laptop, then back at her again. That wasn't leadership. That wasn't authority. That was a performance, staged in the exact way she wanted, framed to give her the answer she'd already decided she needed. She didn't want guidance. She wanted permission to do what she'd already made up her mind to do. I left without saying a word. Not because I agreed. Not because I accepted it. But because I knew nothing I said would matter to someone who was only ever interested in hearing herself speak. I walked back to my desk with no rush in my step. My heart was still beating a little too fast, but there was no drama left in me. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a scene. I just pulled my coat off the back of my chair, grabbed the cardboard box I kept under the desk, left over from a hardware shipment months ago, and started packing. A few heads popped up as I started folding up the framed photo of my sister and me at Red Rocks. I slid my pens and notebooks into the box, one by one methodically. My wireless mouse, the phone charger, the bottle of ibuprofen I always shared with Mason. I didn't make a sound. I didn't slam a drawer or mutter anything under my breath. Just quiet, steady movements. That kind of silence gets loud real fast in an open office. Brandon was the first one to approach. He stepped over with this look like he couldn't decide if he was confused or scared. "Wait," he said, keeping his voice low. "What happened?" I didn't stop what I was doing. Just kept folding up my desk calendar and said, "I got fired." Just like that. He blinked. "Fired? For what?" I smiled a little, not bitter, not smug. "For showing up at 10. That got a reaction. He glanced toward the glass wall of Jennifer's office, where she was standing, arms folded, looking down at her phone like none of this mattered. A few more people drifted closer. Ethan from legal, Nora from infrastructure, even one of the junior analysts I barely knew. They didn't say anything, just hovered nearby, watching as if waiting for some explanation that would make this make sense. But there wasn't one. People didn't get fired from our floor. Not unless they'd done something serious. Data breach, client scandal, that kind of thing. And definitely not if they were me. The buzz started building around the room. Soft voices, short bursts of, "Are you kidding? And this is a mistake, right?" A few glanced nervously toward Jennifer's office, but no one moved to stop me. Nora stepped up beside me, looked into the box, then looked at me. "You're the reason this place has a sales floor," she said quietly. I gave her a look that said, "I know." Then I closed the box and stood up. As I turned to leave, one of the senior managers, Liam from the strategy team, a guy who'd always played things politically safe, leaned in behind his monitor and whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "It's over for her. She doesn't know who she's hurt." I nodded once, gave him a polite smile, and walked to the elevator. I didn't look back. Not because I was trying to be dramatic, but because there was nothing left in that office worth turning around for. The minute I got home, I sat down at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and pulled up the contact list I kept backed up in my personal drive. Not the one the company controlled, the one I built myself over the years. Client names, direct numbers, notes from meetings, deal milestones, birthday reminders, even which ones preferred text over email. It was my lifeline, the product of 7 years of work, built brick by brick through cold calls, client dinners, red-eye flights, and a lot of weekends that bled into Monday mornings. I wasn't angry, not in the screaming, throwing things kind of way, but something inside me had shifted. This wasn't just about getting fired for a start time. This was about being tossed aside by someone who didn't understand the value of what she was stepping on. I wasn't going to burn the place down. I didn't have to. I just had to let gravity do the work. I wrote one message. Simple, direct, respectful. "Hi. Just a quick note to let you know that as of this morning, I'm no longer with the company. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I'll be in touch soon to share my next steps. Looking forward to continuing our work together, wherever that may be." Then I copied it into 100 individual messages. No mass email. No blast list. Every message sent manually, each one addressed to a specific person. CFOs, CISOs, procurement leads, a few board members I knew from enterprise accounts. People I'd met in hotel lobbies at midnight and boardrooms at 7 a.m. People I'd flown across the country to meet because they were on the fence and I knew how to close. People who only signed those deals because they trusted me. The replies started coming in within the hour. Some were polite but cautious. Others were blunt. "Let us know where you land. You were the reason we stayed. If you're out, we're out. We've been unhappy since Jennifer took over. Now we've got a reason to walk." One client, the CIO of a Fortune 100 logistics firm, wrote, "We're not moving until we know where you go. But once we do, we'll shift our entire security ops contract. Let us know when." By the end of the day, my inbox was full. A spreadsheet of confirmations was already growing on my desktop, and it didn't take long to realize what I already suspected. More than 80% of the major clients I had brought in weren't loyal to the company. They were loyal to me. All I had done was tell the truth. No pitch, no bitterness, just a quiet message that said I was moving on, and they were ready to follow. I was halfway through my second coffee of the morning, sitting in sweats on my balcony with the Denver skyline stretched out in front of me, when my phone buzzed with a message from Mason. It was short. No punctuation, no fluff. "The boss is back. He's looking for you." I stared at the screen for a second, letting those words settle. Richard wasn't supposed to be back for another 2.5 weeks. The man was supposed to be in Seoul, or maybe Tokyo by now, bouncing between conference rooms and hotel lobbies. But apparently something had pulled him back early, and judging by the tone of Mason's message, he wasn't in town for sightseeing. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I opened Slack on my phone, not to message anyone, just to peek at the internal chatter from the read-only channels I still had access to. And that's when I saw the posts. Jennifer had apparently spent the entire morning flooding the company's internal group with posts about leadership culture and alignment through gratitude. She'd uploaded a new headshot, professional lighting, hair perfectly curled, captioned with something like, "Proud to serve as interim leader for this incredible team," and was actively reminding people to like and engage to show team spirit. Someone even posted a screenshot of her privately messaging employees, asking them to react to her photo with a thumbs up or heart emoji for optics. It was all unraveling fast. I got another message, this time from Liam. Richard just walked through the office. Didn't stop to talk. Went straight into his office and shut the door. He asked where you were. That's when the email came through. Not from HR. Not from Jennifer. Directly from Richard's personal Gmail. Subject line, "Come in today." The message was one line long. "Edward, I want to speak with you face to face. Come in when you can." No confusion. No hesitation. I closed my laptop, changed into a clean shirt, grabbed my keys, and got in the car. I didn't rush. I didn't need to. Whatever was about to happen, I had a feeling Jennifer wouldn't be asking for likes much longer. I walked into the office just after 10, wearing the only tailored navy suit I owned, the one I usually saved for final negotiations or high-stakes client meetings. I hadn't worn it in over a year, but it still fit like it was cut yesterday. The elevator opened onto our floor, and the usual morning murmur fell noticeably quiet. Heads turned. People looked up from their screens. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I just nodded once, walked past the front desk, and headed toward my old section like I belonged there, because I did. Jennifer must have seen me the moment I stepped in. She was already walking toward me, her heels clicking like a metronome, counting down to another one of her power trip performances. Her voice came fast and sharp, too loud for the room. "You're not supposed to be here. You need to leave right now, or I'll..." She didn't get to finish. Richard's voice cut through the silence like a blade. He didn't shout. He didn't even raise his tone, but the whole room heard it. My office. Now. He was standing just outside his door, suit slightly wrinkled, tie loosened like he'd come straight from the airport, but his eyes were sharp, focused, and locked on Jennifer. She froze mid-step. The expression on her face shifted fast. Anger, confusion, something close to panic. But she didn't argue. She turned and followed him into his office without looking back. The door shut behind them, and the room went dead quiet. I didn't sit. I didn't move. I just stood near the conference table, watching the closed blinds of Richard's glass-walled office while the entire floor pretended to work. You could feel the tension pulsing in the air. 20 minutes passed, maybe more, though it felt longer. A couple people paced. Someone on a call kept muttering, "I'll have to get back to you," while staring toward the door. Then it opened. Jennifer stepped out first. Her eyes were red, her face flushed. She didn't say anything, didn't look at anyone. She just walked past the desks, down the hall, and into the elevator. Her hands were shaking. She didn't even press the button. Someone inside must have already called it. The doors closed behind her with a soft, final sound. Richard stepped out a moment later and looked around the room. He didn't need to say much. "She is no longer with the company," he said, his voice steady, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We're moving forward. That's all." Then he turned and walked back into his office. No one clapped. No one cheered. It wasn't that kind of moment. It was quiet, solemn, electric. Like the end of a storm you didn't realize had been building until it finally broke. I stayed where I was for a few more seconds, just long enough to take in the weight of it, then exhaled once and finally sat down. I was about to leave when Richard asked me to stay back for a few minutes. He didn't say why, but I knew. The way he looked at me, calculated, a little desperate, like a man who just realized the foundation under his feet wasn't as solid as he thought, told me everything before he opened his mouth. We stepped into his office, and he closed the door behind us. He didn't sit, just paced once in front of the window, rubbed the back of his neck, and finally turned to face me. "Look," he said, "I know things got out of hand. That was never supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to." He trailed off for a second, then caught himself. "I'll be honest, Edward. We want you back. I want you back. We'll double your salary, give you full control of the department, bonuses tied to every client you bring in. Corporate card, flexible terms, whatever you need. You can even have a stake in the company if that's what it takes." I stood there, arms crossed, just watching him. He kept going. "This place doesn't run without you. Everyone knows it now. You're the reason we stayed afloat through 2 bad quarters and a pandemic. I should have seen it sooner. I should have." I cut him off, not with anger, just with a flat voice that didn't waver. I'm not coming back. He blinked like he hadn't heard me right. I'm not coming back, I said again, slower this time. You didn't lose me the day I walked out. You lost me the day you let her tear down what I built. You watched her do it. You let her. He opened his mouth, probably to defend himself, but nothing came out. I adjusted the strap of my laptop bag on my shoulder and looked around the office one last time. Same view, same desk, same framed award on the wall with my name under it. And none of it meant a damn thing anymore. You don't fix this with money, I said, then walked out and didn't look back. A week later, I signed the kind of contract people in my field dream about but rarely see. One of our top competitors, smaller in size but sharper, faster, run by people who still understood what value looked like, reached out to me the same day Jennifer walked out of the building. We didn't talk long. They already knew who I was, what I'd done, and more importantly, what I could bring with me. They offered full autonomy, a blank slate. I could build my own team from the ground up, hire who I wanted, run the department how I saw fit. No layers of approval, no corporate theater. Just results, ownership, and a percentage of every contract I signed. The day we made it official, I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel vindictive. I felt clean. Like a weight I hadn't noticed had been sitting on my chest for years had finally been lifted. My name started popping up in industry write-ups almost immediately. Edward Lawson joins rival firm, brings clients and culture with him. The man who walked away from a sinking ship. How one fired executive rewrote the playbook. It was surreal. I never chased headlines. But this time, they found me anyway. Meanwhile, Jennifer's name didn't disappear, it went viral. Not in the way she probably hoped. Clips from our internal Slack leaked to TikTok. Screenshots of her, like my photo or else, messages were suddenly being turned into parody skits. She became a cautionary tale in business subreddits, the kind that gets told by tired interns with headlines like, "This is why we don't date the CEO." Her photo floated around with fake inspirational quotes plastered on top, like, "Lead with zero experience and 100% confidence." She was everywhere, just not for the reason she intended. I didn't comment. I didn't post. I didn't need to. I was busy. I was sitting in my new office, downtown, top floor, nothing too flashy but all mine, with sunlight pouring through the windows and the hum of a team I handpicked working just down the hall. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't answering to people who didn't understand the business. I wasn't defending my time, my schedule, my value. I wasn't begging to be heard. I breathed in, deep and full, and it actually felt like air again. Not pressure, not compromise. I leaned back in my chair, stretched out my arms, and let the thought land, simple and solid. I'm my own boss now.